Today is January 25th of 2022, and we're finishing up the last leg of our project. We're about to plant trees on the site. We have persimmon, white oak, sycamore, and black locust to plant here.
White oak are a key species for the wildlife. Their acorns are a important source of food for everything from deer and turkey to other wildlife. So they're also very important for the economy of Kentucky and surrounding states. White oak is one of the most valuable species for veneer and staves for the manufacture of wooden barrels, which are in high demand now because of the booming bourbon market. And so white oak is a species of concern. There's a white oak initiative in Kentucky to really focus efforts on making sure that we don't run out of high quality white oak in our forests. So it's important to manage your forest to sustain white oak that's already there. And if you're planting trees on an area to reforest it and the soils will support white oak, it's a good species to plant. So we're trying to go full circle here and manage our existing white oak stands while also trying to encourage the growth of more white oak. These seedlings, a lot of them have way too much root to plant with the dibble bars, planting bars that we're using. If you try to stick this in the hole, the roots are going to be pointed up and crammed in there. It can cause what's called J-rooting. If a root's curved up, pointed up out of the hole, and it'll quickly dry out, the tree will likely die. So even though it's counterintuitive that we're cutting off a lot of these roots, that's what you have to do so that they can fit properly in the hole. And if you cut a lot off, like these really big ones, then you're going to have to cut some of the top of the tree off as well. So you're better off to have a tree of reduced size that's going to live than a big tree that's going to die. That's about the maximum. You'd have to put two dibble holes for this one.
These are the students. Say your names.
Joe.
Chase.
Zen.
Andrea.
The dibble bar is inserted into the soil, and a lot of times if you have a nice healthy root system, you've got a lot of root. So sometimes if I have a very big root system, I may go twice in here, and then I try to spread it nicely and make sure that I got that bottom open so that those roots go down as much as possible into that lower section. Then usually I just bunch the roots together, and I'm trying to make sure that all the roots go down and don't J, because that's what you don't want. You don't want a J root. So I get it down in there. I'm also looking for the same soil level that the tree came out of. So here it's not readily apparent, but I'm gonna give it my best guess that that's about the right place. And then I usually try to get them to where they're fairly vertical, and then you come behind the where you put the divot in and just put the bar back in, press it forward, and typically I put a little bit of pressure on both sides, and and then just kind of, I'm trying to get it to grow as straight as possible, so I may give it a couple extra nudges. And you just want the soil to close around the roots so you don't leave any roots exposed to the air, because the worst thing that you can do is leave roots exposed and the roots dry, and once they dry out, there's a chance that they won't, they'll die. You know, if you see your roots drying out a little bit, take them and just dunk them in the water, because that's the most important thing, is just keeping those roots moist. So that
standing here in a part of the Berea College forest. It's just a couple hundred yards from where we planted the seedlings, and this is a nice about 18-inch white oak tree here, Quercus alba. We planted some white oak in the other area, and this shows what those trees are capable of growing into. This is just beginning to be mature. We have trees that are 2-3 times this size on the college forest. So now we've completed the planting, but that's not the end of management for this piece of property. When you're in forestry, you have to think long-term, and after you put the trees in the ground, they still have to be maintained to keep them from being overwhelmed by competition, invasive species in particular, and then vines and volunteer sprouts from tulip poplar and sycamore and different trees that may come in there. In between the rows will have to be managed, have to be kept cleaned out away from the trees we planted. So over time we'll monitor this area. As the trees get bigger, we'll make sure that they are free of competition so they can grow well, and then eventually the trees may need to be thinned, and we thought of that ahead of time by planting every other row to species that we consider nurse trees. The black locust and the persimmon are smaller growing trees. They don't get really big like the white oak and the sycamore, so they won't be able to compete with the sycamore and white oak. They'll stay in a non-competitive position. So eventually some of those trees may need to be taken out. We can probably remove the black locust and use them for fence posts and firewood. When they get to about the size that they're useful, they'll have serve their purpose as nurse trees to help the other ones grow straighter and taller. One benefit of the black locust also is that they're a legume species. The nitrogen that the black locust put into the soil helps it to be more fertile for the other tree species to benefit. In some of these old fields, this is an old abandoned field site. Sometimes those old fields are pretty poor as far as nutrients, so that'll help boost the fertility of the soil. The leaf litter also is good for the site, and as the leaf layer develops, you get a good duff layer, a humus layer. Eventually, as the trees get quite a lot larger, say in 20-30 years, you can thin out the stand. So we may even remove some of the white oaks, for instance, in time. But a forest manager is always looking towards what to do next, and you're never lacking something to do managing a forest, but it's something that we enjoy, and it's a way to be to some degree self-sufficient and get material to use from your own forest.
Thank you guys for coming along with us.